Soon they'll invent microscopes so powerful that they'll begin to understand that life is empty. Jack Kerouac wrote that in the 1950s, and now science is catching up, realizing that there's really no such thing as actual matter, solid, hard stuff. It's all made of the same stuff as dreams. And we all know what it's like to dream at night. Everything appears solid until you wake up. And then you realize it was only made of consciousness and astonishment. Consciousness appearing as a building, as the Eiffel Tower, as a door, as a chair, as a road, as a world. Jack Kerouac later wrote, happiness, true happiness consists in realizing that it is all a great, strange dream. And the name of the Buddha means the awakened one, awakened from the dream. Everyone's the Buddha, yet they're not aware of it. So that brings us to today. Bill Hicks, Lisa, I don't know if you know this. He's a great comedian who died young, but he said this: wouldn't you like to see a positive LSD story on the news? He said this back in the 1980s. To base your decision on information rather than scare tactics and superstition. Wouldn't that be interesting just for once to hear something like this? He said, today on the news, today a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. That we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're all the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather. That would be a great story. So today on this podcast, we will have a very, very positive drug story, a very positive, important story. Over the last 8 years since I published my first book, I received many emails and messages about the book and other books that I've written, all books trying to effectively help others experience this mind-blowing, mystical experience, this advanced astonishment that we talk about here, this inner transformation that all the religions are pointing to. And so many positive reports came back from people who read the books, like Lisa, who practiced meditation, took the medicine correctly in silent darkness, not recreationally, but searching for creation itself. And they had read the books or watched the podcast, dipped into the astonishment toolbox that we're trying to build here, and practiced the inner work, the true work, and hoping to realize what we're here to realize in the first place, that life is truly a dream of separation from who you really are, and to wake up lucidly in this dream or from the dream and find the true joy of knowing your true nature as everything. So it is this podcast position, as everyone knows, that without taking a psychedelic or these astonishment medicines, it's very hard, almost impossible for someone to understand what what these difficult sacred texts are saying. The Course in Miracles, or the Dhammapada, or the Upanishads, or the Bible, or the Quran, or the Kabbalah, as Paul would call Lisa, the Kabbalah, because it's hard. The mystical truth that can take forever. Lisa, do you know this story about Buddha and the little bird with the silk? You ever hear that?
I might have, but I don't mind hearing it again.
It's this great idea of, imagine a mountain like 6 or 8 miles high, 8 miles wide. It's a big mountain. And a little bird every 100 years goes by the mountain with this beautiful little silk hanging out of its mouth, the softest silk in the world. And it goes over the top of the mountain once every 100 years. The silk grazes the top of the mountain. And what enlightenment would be, Buddha said, is, this is how long we've been trying to find it. That until that mountain, how long would it take the bird to take a mountain 8 miles high down with a silk, not a bulldozer, but a silk. So the medicines are more like a bulldozer or some big equipment that actually move the mountain. So today, I'm almost done. Today, one of these people, Lisa right here, who had been struggling with the texts, the course, and spending hard-earned money going on expensive retreats and things, trying to awaken to this beautiful truth, she's here to share with us her journey and share with us, this is really important, what actually worked. Imagine that's something that actually worked, not just talk, but really worked. So it's a wholly astonishing podcast today in the Milky Way. Welcome, Lisa. Hauge,
Hague, it's perfect.
Hauge, to the Institute for Advanced Astonishment. So good seeing you, Lisa.
Beautiful. And thank you for having me. I want to say first and foremost that your book was very helpful. However, I was still steeped in pain, and I carried that pain my entire life, and I didn't know what it was. And what it was the story, the virus in my computer, if you will, this background noise of my beliefs. And here's what the course, if you haven't read the course, those of you listening haven't read the course, I've been reading it since, oh gosh, maybe 1990, off and on. And it keeps saying there is no world. It says, your problem's been solved. In fact, I want to read a little blurb from today's lesson. But I didn't know what my problem was. And people said, oh, it's your story, including our friend Paul. But the problem was I didn't know what that meant. So it says in there over and over, you need to let go of your concepts. So Paul mentioned, and a couple of other people mentioned, you might want to try medicine. And I will say that I'm a person from alcohol, so I was very skeptical and very worried about that. But it did not affect me. And in fact, it made it better. I haven't drank in a long time, but I will say that the medicine really opened me up to possibility. And I'm going to share my story about that briefly, just to let you know what. And I tried a few. I tried MDMA. I tried LSD. This is recently in the last 3 years. Mushrooms. None of that brought me to the place that 5-MeO did. Now, I want to, if you don't mind, I'll tell you what happened. So I got a hold of some people, and they told me about a man who was in Bend who just moved here, and the doors opened wide up. He said, I can do an MDMA sit with you, but it was way more expensive than I could handle. And so I said, well, is it okay to get your source? And he reluctantly, but went ahead and trusted me that I would not misuse the source. And so I got my own medicines and did them myself with eyes closed, as you recommended. I still didn't get too far. And one day he told me he had 5-MeO, and then he called it the God molecule. And I listened to Martin Ball, and I heard him, and I love Martin Ball.
He lived right in your state, right? Not too far.
Yes, in Ashland. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And but I didn't have any communication with them. But what happened was, I wrote a little thing down so I wouldn't forget. So here's what I discovered from the 5-MeO. The one discovered that nothing and everything all at once is what it was. That's what I experienced. And that's hard to put into words, and it doesn't do it much justice. And I understood, but words didn't explain that I am the eternal and internal understanding. And it's right. It's not in my body, but I'm pointing to my heart because that's where I feel like it lives. It's not in my head. And that was part of the problem, is I kept listening to my head, and it's a conflict between head and heart. But all of a sudden, when I went into the journey, I took the inhale, and out I went. And I was terrified before I took the hit. But I just said to the universe, I said, I want to know love. That was my intention. Please let me know love in a way that I can understand. And I completely expanded into a space that was so large. It had no boundaries. And the world itself did dissolve, and so did I. The self that I call Lisa. Millions of pieces of my life went by. To me, it felt like a near-death experience. And then when that all passed, I dissolved into this nothingness. And that's when I got that it's a nothingness and an everythingness. And it's everywhere all at once, into a love so great that there are no words. So if you understand when you fall in love with somebody or your cat or your dog or whatever, it's so big in your heart, but you can't tell somebody what love feels like. But it's 50 times it's a million times bigger than that. It was so vast that there were no words. And I saw a pinpoint in my vision, if there's any vision, I saw a pinpoint of light, and I could feel the ego right there, and it didn't want to see that. It was afraid of that. But I just kept telling myself to surrender. And once I did, that light became all encompassing and so big. And it wasn't a white light. It was more like a clear, sometimes golden, but more of a clear space. And the best way to say this is that I got the sense that there is no good or bad.
Yes.
We are pristine and untouched by our experiences and untarnished by this life. I really got what the Course says is there is no sin, there is no mistake. You haven't done anything wrong, no matter what it looks like. And it's just an experience in a series of events that don't touch us. And we are unmarked, we are untarnished by it. That was the word that came to me in the experience. Yes. And I know in it, coming back from it, I get words, but it wasn't words in the experience. So I also got that it said to me, or I knew that I had said yes. And apparently the people sitting with me said I said yes very loud. That I had said yes to all of this, which is, in somewhere in time, I heard my own voice saying, you said you would do this, whatever this is. So that means I'm no longer a victim of what happened to me growing up, which was, I thought, horrifying. So yes to this movie called Lisa and This Life that I came into, and I know now that I am not a victim of the world I see, which is A Course in Miracles lesson. However, I never got it. I mean, I tried to comprehend it. So, and then the other part of it was the I am said, I am one looking through millions of eyes. It didn't say it, I knew it. That you and I, every single spirit in a body is one looking through millions of eyes. And it was all at the same time. And then I knew that I am the divine experience itself through my being. I'm not the avatar, but the light, the finite light being in a body as an expression of God. All things are happening in perfection. And as I felt myself returning, the gratitude, I practiced gratitude, but I didn't even know what gratitude even means. Even saying it to you on this video, it's too big.
Yes.
It was so big, I couldn't handle it. I just kept saying, thank you, thank you. And that's how I woke myself up from it, was thank you, thank you. And lastly, we are all just one being. And I studied the Course for years, and it finally became a living document in me. So now when I read it, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm completely awake or anything like that. I just got a huge glimpse. The veil was lifted big enough for me to see that all my beliefs, that the concepts I was telling you about before, and I'll tell you what my beliefs. I'm not safe. I made these up as a very small child, and I want to talk about that. I'm unloved and unlovable. I'm guilty. I am responsible for people's happiness and unhappiness. Those were the concepts that I found in this last 4 years. And if I can step back before this experience, and then you can ask me whatever you want. I found Diedrich Walzig. Diedrich Walzig does Choose Again in Costa Rica. Now, I thought and I saw him on a platform called Bill Free and Lisa Natoli. I saw him on their platform, and I thought, I think that's calling to me. So I went and did the work. So the reason I want to say this is because medicine is great. It's a wonderful tool, but like you said earlier, there's work. You can't just do medicine and hope that everything's going to be healed. I wanted so badly, you know this about me. I tried reaching out to you. I wanted to break open, but I didn't know how. And what I found from Choose Again is every upset that comes into my life is an opportunity to heal an unhealed belief. I get triggered all the time. And what I do now, it's not big triggers, little ones, sometimes big ones. I had some on my trip around money. And I look at it and I'm able to, I guess you call it the part of you that can stand back and go, oh, there's that. And without attachment.
Perfect.
I'm able to see now that I made this up as a child. And how that, let me give you a little example for someone that might be able, this might help, is that I'm just going to use one of my horrifying stories that
Sure.
I made up about a belief. I was about 2 and I scratched my mom's Frank Sinatra album. And I don't really remember this, but I guess I was curious, right? That's what kids do.
Yeah.
Curiosity, and I had this nail and I was scratching it. Well, the next thing I know, I was thrown across the room. And the next thing after that is I was at someone's house for a week. What do you think I made up about myself? What do you think I made that mean about me? Here's the key. This happened to me, but it's not that I'm a victim of a terrible childhood. Lots of terrible things happened growing up. I left at 14 years old. Actually, 13 was the first leave. Left and stayed with a friend for a year. So I made up in that, not knowing it. This is what children do. Oh my God, I must be so terrible. There's a lesson about evil, darkness, and sin. I took that on. I am evil, darkness, and sin. I must be, or I wouldn't be thrown across the room and unlovable. So the course is wonderful. It spells it out, but it didn't tell me how to get there. Whereas Choose Again showed me exactly how to get there. And then I'm going to bring up this. So if I have a trigger in my life and someone does something, for a long time I was married, and my I call him my husband. He was on a lot of opioids and chemicals in our marriage, and every time he was on something and he would be slightly out of it, or out of it at all, it triggered the belief that I'm unsafe. I didn't know that's what it was then, though. I blamed him at the time that he was causing me pain, right? So going back and doing all this work showed me that everything that's happened has been for me. It's for an unhealed belief that I'm carrying around and a concept that I made up about myself. If I made it, I cannot do it. I'm not in a prison. The prison doors aren't closed. I made up this story about me that somehow, like my mom, I didn't know she was bipolar as a child. I knew she took drugs and alcohol a lot, and there was abandonment going on there between her and my father. What I made that about me was that I lack. There must be something wrong with me. Anyhow, my mom was bipolar, and the reason I bring this up is that she'd be up here or down here. When she was down here, I made up that I'm responsible for her happiness and her unhappiness. Now, I tell that story because I carried that through my life and didn't know it. And the course said you have to, the course goes over and over about letting go of concepts. But if you don't know what they are and how to get to it, there was no clear direction. So Choose Again is a phenomenal path for me that shows me that when there's a trigger, I get, it's not that I have to, or I get to look and see where there's still an unhealed belief, or where I'm being blocked. Because when I'm blocked, right? If I'm blocked because I'm resenting my mom or I feel unsafe, I'm blocked to share love with you. I'm blocked to everybody. I'm not just blocked to that person. So with all that being said, I just keep turning around, James, and I go, I can't believe that I don't have anxiety. I can't believe that I'm sitting here free most of the time. From being a victim of the world I see, from being a victim of the childhood that I had. And so that's really the story of this wonderful, beautiful experience of the one looking through many eyes. And I will say too, though, that I forget and I remember. I forget and I remember. And that's the other piece of Choose Again. I keep plugging them in here, but they teach you how to forgive yourself. They'll look in your eyes, like, let's just say I have an upset and I look at you and I say, please forgive me for believing there's something wrong with me. And you say, thank God that can't be true. Love doesn't make beings with something wrong with them. Love is everything, and it's impossible for you not to be a part of everything. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And then I would come back to you and say, please forgive me for forgetting that I'm part of the whole, that it's impossible for me to be disconnected, except in my mind and in my beliefs. And in those, I can be disconnected, but not in truth. not in reality. I am part of all. And I actually do feel it and experience it. I'm able to move over from this forgetfulness. So those tools have helped me tremendously from a terrible, long, long road of misery. So, and the medicine, let me get back to the medicine and then I will be quiet. I can't say enough. I mean, I just went to Sedona and last week, and I had an opportunity to sit again. And I've done that now. I think I counted right. It's 8 times in the last year and a half. I got there. I spent time with my friends from Choose Again. My ex came with me. We had a wonderful time. He sat with the medicine and had a major breakthrough. He had a full-on release. He woke up and said, "Oh my God, it's so simple. Why did it make it so complicated?" And he said in the experience, he looked under everything and he couldn't find anything. He said it was everything and nothing, the same experience I had. There was nothing to find except love. But when I sat, I waited for, and I don't usually do this, but I could feel this resistance. And I've had it every time before the medicine, but this one was different. And so I meditated before I was going to sit, and the still small voice said, "You don't need to do this." And I remembered somebody said, when you get the message, hang up the phone.
Yes.
It's not that I'm never going to do it again. I just didn't need it right now. So that's bringing you up to date as to what I'm doing and where I'm at. And
that was amazing. You just laid that out so beautifully.
well, thank you.
And if you don't mind, I just want to go into
Sure.
little parts of that. I met you, talked to you pre-medicine, and you had read the course since 1990, and I think I started talking to you around 2017, 18, 19, somewhere in there, where Paul had walked into your course group in Oregon, right? And he said he walked into this group of these wonderful people, but no one had understood what you had, right? Were you leading the group?
I was leading the group, including me. I kept, I mean, I didn't, the good thing is I haven't given up. I hadn't given up, but no, I didn't really understand
No,
it.
it's
Only
beautiful.
little, yeah.
But wait,
only
you were
little
the
pieces.
leader. This is what's so beautiful about your story, because what you just told us was such wisdom. And I was there the second you took DMT, right after it, when you wrote me, and you sounded like a master from thousands of years ago. So I could almost quote what you said about the vastness of that it can't be in words, and it's beyond concepts, and how beautiful it is. So, but before that, you were seeking and actually teaching the course, and Paul stood up and explained it. I think there were tears in the room, and people
There was.
yeah. And
There is no world, he said, and I don't remember the wording, but we all knew it was true.
yes, and the tears were flowing, and you guys were on this for sort of 90 to 2000 is 10 years, maybe 20, 30 years, right, of reading the book. The words are very hard. It's like a locked book. It's totally locked. And you took the medicine. So you started with, I think it was, I encouraged you, MDMA and Silent Darkness, and you did it. And I think you got something.
I did.
And when you got it, it was something, but not quite. It wasn't the key to the jail cell yet. Then you took mushrooms, and I think not a heroic dose. What did you take? A few grams?
Yeah,
or?
just like 3 grams.
And I think you got something again, something. So it was like a step. It was like crossing a river, and you step on one rock, and you step. But then I know Martin Ball was on, and you were like, you were going to go to Rupert Spira retreat for thousands of dollars, or
right.
Martin Ball or DMT. And I said, you can get DMT, and you found this beautiful place where you can get it, and you trusted and you got it. Or you went through a sitter or something, right? Through
right.
friends. And was it the first DMT journey that?
Yeah, it wasn't DMT though. People call it DMT, but it's actually 5-MeO, and it's got DMT on the end. But they're very different animals.
Yeah.
I've never done the DMT itself, and I'm not interested in it. It's more you see machine elves and
Right.
aliens,
This is
all
the
kinds of
10
different
minute,
things.
10, 20
This is
minute.
20 minutes,
Yeah.
20 minutes. And
Of everything.
I was there about 30.
Yeah.
And by the way, I haven't been leading A Course in Miracles for all those years. I just started, and I don't consider myself a Course in Miracles teacher. I just do I'm a guide, and we do the course together. But I've only been doing that about 5 years. But I was really asleep when I met Paul, and I still am. I mean,
Right.
I'm not awake, but I have a different sense. I can anchor into this solid place that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can become I can
Impersonal.
find I can
Yeah.
find peace very quickly.
And can you
Yeah.
talk about I mean, we're all looking for love, I mean, that's the story of humanity. But the love that you found that night on the 5-MeO, can you mention what kind of, how different that is than anything you've read in words, or anything you
Yeah. Let
tried
me
to
see if
find
I
in a
can.
relationship, or
Right. Well, that's just it. I was trying to complete myself, and I didn't know that I was doing that. And so the love just showed me I am complete. There's nothing out there to complete me. But there's another component to that. I will say that relationships are for us. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be in a relationship, but what they do is you mirror each other of your unhealed beliefs.
yes.
And I'm going to call it, for the sake of names, his name is Tom, my ex-husband. We were married 34 years. We are now spending a lot of time together, and it's a whole different relationship. And there's still a lot of love between us. But the difference today is I don't need a relationship to complete me. I enjoy a relationship to share, and sharing is important. You and I are having a relationship right now. Without relationship and sharing, to me, like my journey is to help others. I know this.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean I know what they need, but a gal called me yesterday, and she was in a lot of pain, and she was worried about how they were feeling about her, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, have you ever thought about the fact that you're not responsible for her feelings? Now, does that mean you're not compassionate? Heck no. You bring compassion and love to it, but you let go of, I'm not responsible for someone's journey. Your curriculum is your curriculum. You said yes to, or you wouldn't be here. I said yes. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. But for me, what it means is to do my own work and my own healing so I can have love in relationships. So, but to answer your question about, gosh, and how do you explain how vast is the universe? How do you explain the feeling of being one and complete? It's almost impossible to put into words, but I have experienced it, and I do forget it. And then I can go back into meditation.
Yes.
And re-experience. And I want to bring another thing to mind, is that I through Martin Ball's podcast, I found a group of folks that are doing 5-MeO microdosing, and it's called the Pattern Project. And I am involved on the outskirts, in meaning that I got a hold of someone who makes the pen, one person who makes the pen in Canada. And I microdose about once a week. Sometimes I won't, and sometimes I'll do it twice a week. Depends on what the medicine says to me. I can feel it, like whether I should do it or not. But I don't use that until 20 minutes into my meditation.
That's great.
And then
do you notice the effect of it, or is it very subtle?
it's very subtle. I have it's a very safe pen to use. You can get as much as, full on release if you want, but with that medicine, it's something you don't want to do on your own because you're unconscious. So for the microdose end of it, though, you don't need to worry about that. At first, I was pretty scared of it, but then I started feeling into it, and he told me how to do it. And so I take a 5-second hit, I hold it in, blow it out. And what happens is, and I know you've probably had this in your regular meditation, is all of a sudden it's blank. And it's that no boundaries. It just feels like you're in a big space with no thought goes. And then I hear a little thing that goes, oh, you don't have any thought. And then I go, ha ha ha, but it's a
great.
beautiful, it's a beautiful experience. It's and I'm
So
really happy.
it gets you to that space.
Yeah.
And I like that you recommend maybe 20 minutes, no medicine yet,
Yep.
sitting silent, and maybe thoughts are still coming and going, and but you're working on, and then you take that at 20 minutes in. Do you put a little music on or anything, or is it very
You know,
remote?
I do have a little music in the background. It's a playlist from the 5-MeO experience I
That's
had, and
great.
it kind of like reactivates it, if you will.
Yeah.
I can
Like
actually,
Martin's kind of music, that kind of,
yeah,
Martin
kind of like
makes that
that.
music.
Yeah, yeah. I have had a reactivation though, speaking of which, and I was kind of surprised. So I actually had a session with Martin Ball and a half an hour. He so I had a reactivation after months. So I last sat in October this year. And just a month and a half ago, I think, maybe it's less, I don't know exact time. I was sitting there meditating and I all of a sudden I thought, oh, did I take the medicine? I mean, I didn't know because I went into that same,
Yes.
what's the words, light, uh, loving space that was like no effort. There was no effort. There was
Yes.
um, no, yeah, just that's no effort. And I was very taken back. So I emailed them and I said, hey, I'm thinking about booking a session just to go over whether I want to sit or not again. Um, and anyway, we talked about, he emailed me back and said it's not unusual to have a reactivation. In fact, he can go into the medicine without taking the
Yes.
medicine.
Yeah, he
And I
wrote about
experienced
that
that
in
with,
his books about it just comes back.
yeah. But I didn't think it would, I know it comes back that first week, but I didn't know it would come months
Right.
later.
That's
And it
great.
seems to continually unfold. And one thing he said in his book that I was glad he wrote this, or no, he did it on the session. He said if you have stuff inside that you can't let go of, the medicine, it's like a tied knot and it unties it for you. And that's exactly how I felt on one of my sits. Is like I could feel like something had been untied. That's the only
Yeah.
way I can explain it.
There's a
So,
trick. I used to do magic, and there's an effect where it's a silk that you tie into a knot and you just stare at it. This is a magic trick, but the knot just undoes itself by itself, and it's so beautiful. The knot just, and that's what it's like. It's this self untying knot.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Can
And
you
who would have
talk
thought?
just for a minute about to anyone who's watching who hasn't taken any medicine before, and the Lisa pre-medicine and the Lisa after, the Lisa struggling with the texts and the course, which is so, I have it right, this book right here, so hard. But once you took, so the Lisa before, for 30 years maybe, reading the books and going in nature, and you had so much love inside you, and you have a family and love and nature, and still the gap between that and once you took the medicine, the 5-MeO, can you describe the gap between
Mm,
words in the book and the direct experience for someone
mm,
who's on the fence?
mm. Boy, that might be hard for me to put into words.
It's okay.
Um, a lesson came to me yesterday that so one of my favorite lessons that I really get on an internal basis that I didn't get before the experience is, um, oh gosh, let me think. Not I can choose peace instead of this. It's not that one. It is, I can't think of the lesson all of a sudden. If
It's
it
okay.
comes to
I
me,
just
I'll
mean
tell
the
you.
confusion before and all the
Yes.
words, and you could read the course and be so excited, and you had these groups and you're in it and you're talking and you're sharing and you're chatting, and then the 5-MeO 30 years later that night, what the difference was, because I talked to you right after, and you
Yeah.
were
So,
you were my hero. You were a master. You talked just like a sage. And before it, you were grasping and trying to get it, and you were wonderful. But then once you took the medicine, I was talking to Martin Ball in a female form.
oh my gosh. Well, so I just remembered the lesson and I'm never upset for the reason I think.
Yes, that's a big one.
Okay. So before that, I kind of saw it, but with the medicine, it showed me that I'm untarnished. There is no, I mean, there's upset as long as we're in a human form. I mean, let's face it, things upset me. I got upset when I was at the airport and they wanted to charge me $100 more for the car. Anyway, I don't want to go into the story. But I remembered that I'm not a victim of the world I see. And I remembered that in the grand scheme of things, what's $100 more? And I was able to let it go at that. But before that, before the medicine, before I was just reading the course, I will say there were times where I really got some of the course.
Yes.
I really did. I mean, I really did. But what I didn't get, the difference today and from before is this, is that I felt, so we can read books all day long. You know, you had millions of books, right?
Books. Yeah.
I love books too, but until I experience it, I can read it and have a concept about it.
Yes.
So I read the book and I understood its concepts and I took it as a concept and I tried to apply it. And at times it really worked. At times it really did.
Yes.
But what I didn't know, and the difference now from then is from having the medicine, is I really do get there's nothing wrong with me. That I am the divine, not better or worse, but I am the divine embodied, which means I'm having an experience of life. But if you said, you know, I want nothing to do with you anymore after this podcast, it doesn't mean anything about me. I'm
Right.
unchanged. Love doesn't
Yes.
change. It's unchangeable. And I keep pointing here, which is not true, but I feel it in here. There's a solid anchor that I can anchor into that is unchangeable. But I have to work with it at times. If you said that to me, my feelings would honestly probably be hurt for a few minutes.
Right.
But then I'd go, wait a minute. What does that mean about me? Nothing. Doesn't mean anything.
So what you're saying, if I could try to put it in my own words and then you correct it, there's a level to you. There's levels to everyone. It's like a level. And on the shallower level or wherever our everyday experience is, or pre-medicine, you can get hurt. You're in that level. But the medicine took you way deep into the heart in quotes, your core, the deepest frequency of what you really, your true nature, that you got glimpses of when you'd get a hit of the course or moments, and over that 30 years, 40 years, you had glimpses of it. But now the medicine puts you on a rocket ship into God's heart or your heart, which is the same heart, one heart.
Yeah.
And you got there and you got a taste of the real beautiful truth. And that's where you're unblemished, unstained. What was your untarnished?
Untarnished. It said untarnished. Yeah.
Yes, that's untouchable. You can't touch that. And then you stay there with the 5-MeO for 10, 20 minutes. And it's so strong that it could take 20 years to process it, but you start to float back into a little bit of amnesia, a little bit of not Alzheimer's, but amnesia, Alzheimer's, forgetful
like
of who we forget our true, no, Alzheimer's meaning the forgetting our true self, that beautiful truth that nothing can ever be touched. And so we float back and we get a little, like you said, you have a relationship and you get a little, ow, I felt that from someone. And as you said, it was like mirrors, and you realize the work you have to do to get back to that where you can't be. Yeah. So
exactly.
it's all one beautiful frequency, but there's the deepest frequency that the Course and all these beautiful holy scriptures are pointing to, and philosophies pointing to, and everything's pointing to that. Movies by Christopher Nolan are pointing to it, and the Truman Show. They're all pointing to this unblemished, untarnished self that you are. And most religions will bow to a Jesus or a Buddha or something that's outside them. They don't realize that is who you're one, that's your true nature. And until you get up and realize that's inside you. And the medicine, without the medicine, you were getting little hints of it, but that
Yeah,
5-MeO maybe one time was enough, but you took it a few times. Yeah, take it.
I don't
I
know.
was told by our friend, take it until take your medicine like a child. Take your medicine till you don't need it so much anymore. And then it's maybe once a year, like a tooth cleaning, or
Right.
like a doctor check. You work in the medical field that you need a little checkup. Okay, and then you don't need it anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't at this moment I don't know if I don't need it anymore. It was just in the moment last week I knew that the voice said, and I trust it now. That's the other thing. I believe that I can't trust myself. That was a huge thing for me. Um, and the medicine, I actually asked the medicine, I don't know what I'm asking, but whatever I'm asking answers me. And it said, you don't need that right now. You've got what you need right now in so many words. It was a feeling that
Yes.
I know love. I can access it. And while Tom was doing his sitting, I was able to feel it. I actually bodily felt it. And so
Yes.
did all of us. And he broke out into a crying when he first came out. And then he broke out at the same time into a big laugh. And I've done that before. I had a mystical experience when I was young, and this big, great I am came to me. I was crying in the back of my car. I was feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And this big I am came to me, and it said, I am. And that was a mystical experience. Uh-oh, hold on just a second. Oh, there it goes.
It's fine.
Um, anyway, so I just knew on a knowing level. And what I wanted to piggyback and say to you is the difference now is it's an experience, I'm not reading stuff. That's the
Yes.
difference. You can tell me all day long, and I loved your book. I mean, I cherished it. I highlighted it. I still love it. I have a copy in my, and
This
it says
works.
exactly. No, but no, it says exactly what I experienced. But until I experience it, I don't really get it.
So what would
You
you
know?
say to the people that are on the fence on the medicine? They're a little
Oh,
scared.
I was
It's a big
scared.
thing. Yeah, you were
Yeah, no,
scared
it's a
too.
big deal. I was
You have
scared,
to
but
make that leap, right?
if you want to really know and you want to really experience, it's not the only way. There's other
No.
people that have had the experience without it, but it lifts the veil big enough if you can surrender, though. That's the problem. So I had one sit, I'll tell you, I had one sit, I couldn't get past the ego, and it was the second or third, no, second. And I was disappointed.
You
I was
fought
like,
it.
I guess I fought it because I could hear voices the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, not their voices. I heard little things in the room, but I just heard my ego voice. But anyway, long story short, don't give up. If you want to go do it, though, just be willing to surrender all. Just that's what I did. I surrendered. I'm afraid, but I'm willing to surrender. I want to know love. I want to know what that looks like. And of course, every time I go sit, and I've heard this from many others with 5-MeO particularly, MDMA is no big, except you don't feel very good for a couple of days after. But MDMA is pretty gentle, like you said.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
wonderful. I
good
love it.
entry just to get
Yeah.
started.
And can I tell you, I did about 2 months ago, I did a light sit with someone, not a full on release. And I did the MDMA. I checked with my sitter and asked if it's okay. So I did 80 milligrams of MDMA before, and it was just a wide open experience. But the ego was still yapping. But
Yeah.
I want to say that the MDMA, with my heart was totally open and everything. I couldn't get past thoughts in that. Whereas 5-MeO, you almost can't help it unless you can't surrender. There is no, you get past all that. You don't.
It's a
So
rocket ship.
it's a rocket ship, and it lifts the veil. That's my whole point. It
Yes.
lifts the veil long enough, like a near death experience. You just have an experience.
Exactly. Exactly that. I love that.
And I
It's the
actually
same thing.
one time, the first 5-MeO I had, this is really a strange thing, but the first time was different from all of them. I heard millions of voices whispering like that, and then all of a sudden I thought my body broke in half. I felt it snap. Isn't that weird?
Love
But then
that.
I knew that something died,
Yes.
even
Thomas
just a
Merton
little
said
bit.
he felt a rip, like he didn't take the medicine, but maybe he did, who knows? And it was like a rip, like a pull, like a snap.
Oh, that's what it
Sometimes
felt like, a
it's
snap.
forceful. Yeah, like a snap.
Yeah. Who
Sometimes
said
it's
that?
gentle. That was Thomas Merton when
Oh,
he left, he was in Kentucky in a monastery his whole life. And then he left to go, he was so excited to go meet the Dalai Lama and go to Asia and go where the real meditators are. He was Christian priest. And
right. I know who he is. Yeah.
when the plane took off, he said, I feel like I'm going home, he wrote. And he never returned because he died there. A shower shocked him, some kind of electrical thing. But when he visited these beautiful Buddha statues that were giant, very 60 feet, 100 feet, whatever, laying there, and he saw the relaxed look, and now who knows if someone zapped him, because I heard he had some tea there that they said zapped him. So whatever that
Mm.
is, they
Huh. Well,
called
that's
it
what I
tea.
experienced. Yeah,
Yeah,
I felt a snap,
rip.
a crack, a rip, or something. Again, as you know, it's with an experience like that, it is very difficult to put into words. I've tried my best, but
You're doing
it
great.
doesn't do it didn't do it any justice. I know that you feel that big love for your cat. Um, I feel it for my dog.
Yeah,
I have a shared dog with my spouse, my ex-spouse, and I mean, I feel it for my grandchildren, and they're teachers too, by the way. And I want to
yes.
share something interesting. So I watched the ego come on in my granddaughter.
Ah,
At 10 to 10 and a half months, I watched this. So I let her, I wanted her to be my teacher. When they're first born, up until that time, at least in her body, first of all, I get the sense that she's an old soul. And what's interesting about that is a lot of people told my daughter, it feels like she's been here before, she's an old soul or something, even if that means anything, right? But anyway, I looked at her and there's this awe in her
yes.
eyes. It's just awe. There's no knowing, there's no attachment to anything.
Wow.
That's us.
Yeah,
That's who
yeah,
we are. We forget, right? And then one day I saw, it's like, how do you explain this? I saw her settle in, and when she looked at me, the recognition, I knew she had come into the ego.
yeah. You
She was
saw a
starting to
person. Yeah, like a
yeah,
person.
into a person, starting to recognize objects and things, and
Yes.
but I
That's
watched it
it's
happen.
like the VR set, virtual reality set got put on, and now they start to forget. It's a beautiful.
Exactly.
Do you know the story? I can tell it really fast of the little soul.
I love that story.
Oh, you know it.
I
Should I try to?
love it.
Maybe we can both do. Remember, the little soul is in heaven, or so many words, and where everything's oneness. It's like the Garden of Eden. Everything's perfect. It's our true nature. Everything's perfect,
Yeah.
and the little soul comes up with this idea. I would love to do something like forgive. Like I want to forgive. And God, which isn't separate, but for the story, God says, "Oh, that's so wonderful. You want to forgive, but there's one problem." And the little soul, was a little like stomping its foot, but no foot, and says, "What? What's the problem?" And God says, "There's no one to forgive. Everything is
Mhm.
perfect here." And the little soul was disappointed for a second, and then the friendly soul comes over and says, "I'll volunteer. I'll be separate from you, and we'll go into the dream, and I'll do something so bad to you, and I'll have to really forget to do something so bad, and then you'll have the opportunity to forgive." And the little soul so happy, and but then the friendly soul is smart and says, "But please remember, because if you don't remember, you're going to get insulted by me. You have to remember this, that I'm not separate from you. You remember who you are, or else we're going to have a problem. We'll need a third soul to guide us back." And then the little soul is born as a little girl. I can't remember the name, and comes out, and the nurse puts cold water on the little soul, on the little baby girl, and the guardian angel says, "Perfect time to forgive." And the little girl says, "What's forgiveness?" And the guardian angel says, you told God you wanted to come here to forgive. Now's your shot." And the little soul says, "Who's God? What's God?" And the guardian
Mm.
angel realizes there's the amnesia. that we
Hmm.
that's that 1 year, forgetfulness.
Totally. I
So
love that
funny how
phrase.
we remember hide and seek. We remember and we forget. It's like peekaboo.
Exactly. And that's and that's the hard part about being in a body. It's dense. It's hard to get past the material to remember. And so the meditation and the medicine, the mind training, I mean,
Yes.
the medicine's wonderful, but without mind training, I don't see how it's going to work. So
Yeah.
whatever mind training means to you, whether it's a Course in Miracles or it's Buddhism or whatever works for you, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. If it's the truth, you'll know it. How I know what's true is when I'm no longer feeling conflict. I know there's a knowing. When I'm in conflict, I'm listening to the two voices. One's the fear voice and one's the love voice, and it's all jumbled up, right? In fact, I had one little blurb I wrote down here. So ego proof and the loop of feedback, right? If I tell my story to someone and they validate, oh, you poor thing, you were abused as a kid, and what that does is it continues the addiction. I would like to say that I am addicted to my thinking, right?
Yes.
That's the problem. It
That's
wasn't
the
the
real
substances
addiction.
I used in my, yeah, it's the thinking. Addicted to my story and the drama in it. And it proves that I'm unlovable. It manifests itself out when someone says to me back, like if I was to tell you my real whole childhood story and you heard it, you'd go, oh my God, how did you survive that? Oh my gosh, you're so special. How did you get through all that, right? I don't
And that
know,
goes to, yeah.
but that's the ego proof and the ego loop. And my biggest hang up has been that the ego convolutes itself with attachments and beliefs.
Yes.
That's where I get caught up and that's where I forget. But I don't, this is the beauty of all this. And this is where the course becomes live for me. It's not about blame anymore. I don't blame someone else. I don't even blame me. I recognize
Right.
it and I take responsibility for it. And then I
Full
say,
accountability.
oh, yep, okay, I see what I'm doing. I'm making this mean something about me that has nothing to do with the truth. And I say what Choose Again has taught me. Please forgive me for forgetting that I am whole and complete. Thank God that is true. Just like the cat, just like the beautiful flowers opening up. When I step on a flower, it's still a flower. And sometimes it'll bounce back up, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't change the flower. And so why do I think I'm different? It's that sneaky ego that thinks I'm separate and lovable and cast out of the kingdom. And why is that? Because I made up that I'm guilty.
Yes. Do you feel like these medicine trips have maybe not annihilated the ego, but have tamed the ego a little bit? It's not that wild lion anymore. Now it sits and it's in the back seat rather than driving the car.
Absolutely. You said that perfectly. I couldn't have said it that well. It absolutely is that. And I know I can change my mind. It's like, oh, this is another opportunity. Instead of looking at it like a problem, like this, can I read a blurb of today's
Sure.
lesson? Instead of looking at it as a problem for anyone that's interested, look at it as an opportunity. It's like, oh, like you said earlier with the story, what is that saying? They said yes to this. The same thing I did, right?
Yeah.
I said yes. And I do have a memory, a very faint memory. And I've told people this long before the course. Told my best friend Tom, I know I picked this. I know I came here for this, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. But anyway, so the lesson today, let me look at it on my phone. I thought I had it up here, but the lesson today. But just the first paragraph says, "Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved." Right? A problem
Recognition.
cannot be solved, yep, if you don't know what it is. First, I have to know what my
Yeah.
upset is. What's my trigger? Oh, I'm believing that I'm not safe, right? Or whatever that belief is.
Yes.
Even if it is really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not recognize that it has already been solved.
Beautiful.
This is the situation of the world. The problem of separation. Here it is. This is the difference with the medicine, not knowing that I'm not really separate. It's not a reading that I'm doing. I feel it.
You just
which
said
is
it
really,
perfectly there, that it's something you experience directly and not just words.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is really the only problem that I feel separate. There's many, the one problem comes in many disguises, and what it is I believe I'm separate. It has already been solved. Your problem has already been solved, yet the solution is not recognized because the problem is not recognized. And what's the problem? Well, for me, the problem is I have all these beliefs that keep me in what you called in your book, I think, the jail or the prison or
Yes.
so the prison is all only in my mind.
You're the warden and
That,
you're the guards and you're the bars and you built it so you can get out. And you were
right,
never
but I read all that then, and I wanted so desperately to know that the way you wrote it, and I recognized it, but that's
Yeah.
as far as I got until I had an experience, and that's the difference. So experience is very important. And the only thing I kept doing is knocking, like, if I could rename myself, I would rename myself Determination, because I've been determined since I was born. If you knew what I came from, you would see what I mean.
Yes.
And
I could feel it just knowing you from the last few years. And that's
yeah,
important you need to, it's like climbing Mount Everest or going for the gold or whatever. You need to be that Michael Jordan or Tom Brady, or you need to be the gold. You have to go all the way for this. It's not easy. And
mm-mm.
so you had all these little hints that get and glimpses along the way of your and in the books, and then you finally started with the MDMA, and even then you got a little hint, but you could have stopped, could have said it's not, but you went no, let me try mushroom now, let me try stronger. You were fearless. I mean, you could have a little fear, but you were a
I
sacred
did.
outlaw. You were saying you broke the law. You went for it. You went for the gold. And then you
Mhm.
realize, can you maybe say, I don't know, you're not prepared for this, but I'm going to throw it at you and you don't have to answer. But once you take the medicine, before the medicine and after, once you take the medicine, isn't it funny what it really is in the drink? Like it's just this symbol to reach for. Can you somehow put that in words? Like before it's something that's illegal and looked down upon, and they're taboos, and you'll die, and it's so bad you'll go in a mental home, you jump off a roof. Sure, maybe those things will happen, but if you take it the right way and with sincerity and you let go, you realize that it's just like a little breadcrumb in a dream that brings you home.
Exactly. And I don't know how it is for anyone else, but I was so tired of being in pain. I was so tired of feeling disconnected, separated. I wanted to die. And I don't mean that literally. I didn't want
Oh,
suicide.
yeah. The
I wanted to
suffering pushed
die.
you to the medicine.
It did.
If you didn't
It really
suffer
did.
enough and it was just a balanced suffering, maybe you would have never reached for the medicine. But you were at the point where you're like, I don't care if I live or die. Let me see if this is true. And you took a chance and it gave you, it was steps. But when you got to the 5-MeO, game over.
Yeah, that was game over. And it was the one that worked for me. It doesn't do that for everyone.
Not for
Some people
everyone.
have scary experiences or whatever. I was afraid, and they told me, do not be afraid. When they had me inhale it, they said, in love I trust, and I repeated it, in love I trust, and I can't remember all the words, but I surrender to whatever this is, and I just tried to let go of any idea what it was. But I do want to reiterate, though, James, that medicine is wonderful, but you need to want more than anything to let go. You
Yes.
need to want to let go of what you think you are, what everything is, all for a new experience. Not an old experience. And also there's work. Like I said, I have been doing the Choose Again work, and along with the course, which, by the way, a lot of it's from the course. Diedrich
That's
Walzig
great.
does the course.
And is
Um,
Choose Again from Costa Rica? You mentioned which is close to where I am.
yes, it's from
Is
Costa
it an
Rica.
organization or a book
Yep.
or okay?
Yeah,
That's good to
there's a
know.
book. There's a book called Choose Again: 6 Steps to Freedom, And
Right.
then there's a center in Costa Rica, which I went to once. I spent a week, but I went to many circles online, and you bring your upsets there. And how it goes is you do a reading of the course or from Rumi or whatever. Then we meditate for 5 minutes together. And then we look at, how does this resonate with you, or how are you resisting it? Or do you have an upset you'd like to process today? And we do this forgiveness work. Forgive me for believing that I'm a bad, horrible, the darkest of the darkest.
Right.
And then you can feel it lifting. So I did a lot of that before I did the medicine. I was just ripe for the medicine to get lifted the rest of the way. I don't know that I would have had, like, this 5-MeO keeps unfolding with me. And I don't know that I would be where I'm at without it, but I will say that I don't want anyone to get the idea that the medicine's going to cure you and you're going to. But I will say one last thing, if you don't mind, about a physical illness I
Take your
had.
time.
So I had met Paul. When I met Paul, I don't even know if I told him this. I had what's called smoldering myeloma, and it can turn into multiple myeloma. So it's a blood cancer. I was being watched very closely. I wasn't afraid of it, though. That's the weird thing. I'm afraid of a lot of other things, like not having enough money or whatever, but I wasn't afraid of that. But I kept going back, and they did a couple bone marrow biopsies and blah, blah, blah. And I started doing choose again. Well, I think this was before the medicine. I can't be honest with you. I don't remember. But last year I had an exam, and I got my blood work, and 2 years ago, I did all the things they wanted me to do. And it went from 20% down to 13%. And they said, I don't know how this happened. I didn't tell them. But I can't find the protein that was there that causes this. And I said, well, does that mean I'm free? I don't have to come back? And they're like, no, you got to keep doing your exams. And I haven't done it this year, but I will.
But it went down.
Way down. And I know this work did it. It's all about what I'm choosing to believe. And that is not to blame myself, by the way, if you get a cold or whatever. I got a cold last week, and I watched my ego go, what did you think wrong that caused this?
Yes.
And then I laughed at it. That's where the Son of God forgets to laugh. It's a cold. My body got sick. When I don't put gas in my car, it might stop running. It's a car. This is a car called Lisa that's driving around on this planet having an experience.
Yes.
And then I step out of it. Sometimes something goes wrong with the car. But I will say an experience I had about being sick as a child that I was able to hide is the only time I got absolute lots of love was when I was sick. So I remember willing myself to be sick so I didn't have to face the kids that were mean to me at school. And I could actually manifest a fever and be sick, and I'd get that attention I loved. That's an example of the specialness taking form.
Yeah.
But I don't say, there are people out there that say things that are into the course that say things like, oh, you must have manifested this. And that, to me, that's not what the course is saying.
Yeah.
The course doesn't say blame yourself. It doesn't say that. It's not about that. It's completely opposite.
It's more
Have
about
compassion.
correct the perception.
Yeah, my experience is bring compassion and love to everything.
Yes.
And that's a choice I need to make. And I make it all the time with myself and others.
And when you don't, you suffer, and it's like an alarm clock in a dream. And that's not, it's like what I always say, if you're in a dream and a bear is about to eat your foot in a dream, and the bear is wearing a bib and starts to talk to you, you should say, wait a minute, bears don't talk. There's something wrong here. Like the Sufi, not Rumi, but Hafiz would say, when the fish is if a fish is riding on a camel in a desert and starving of thirst, the first thing it should say is, wait a minute, why am I so thirsty? Like, what am I doing on a camel? Because it's really in the water and it's hallucinating that it's on a camel in a desert. A fish is never on a camel in the desert. It's in the water having a bad dream.
Right.
So we place these things if something's squeezing you, now you know, wait a minute, I am really untarnished. So what's going on here? There's a hallucination going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that reminds me of one other thing in the course that you said about before the medicine and all, is that not only am I not upset for the reason I think, but I put all the meaning I have into everything.
Yes.
Everything. I mean, look what I did as a kid, and it doesn't make me wrong or bad. I just made it
Oh,
mean something that didn't have anything to do with me. My father was a workaholic, right? And I made it mean that I'm not enough, that he doesn't pay attention to me. And I was so terrified of abandonment my whole life, and ego proof kept coming to show me that that I deserve to be punished, that these people are abandoning me. So it's
you
all
made it
stuff
up.
that
Yeah.
made it up. And some people say you don't need to think about your past or go into the story, but for me it was important to go into the story, to feel it, to heal it, because I didn't know what was causing these upsets in my life.
Yes.
So for me, I did need to look at my past. Now it feels like somebody else's life. It doesn't even feel real.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
Do you ever hear
anyway,
the two monkeys story where two monkeys are talking and one monkey says, "Imagine we're on a boat at sea," and the other monkey says, "Okay," and but the boat gets lost at sea, and the other monkey goes, "Oh," and the other monkey says, "And the boat gets lost, but then it starts to sink. It hits an iceberg." And the other monkey's just watching, listening, and then the sharks surround the boat. What would you do? And the other monkey says, "I'd stop imagining." Like just stop,
oh, that's
which doesn't
great.
feel satisfying to the person, to the, as in my book, the TMF, the tenacious motherfucker. The ego
Right,
doesn't like that, but it's that simple. Just stop imagining. And
right.
sometimes we need the medicine to see that. And we see that loop.
Absolutely.
Did you see like a loop, maybe on the MDMA? I don't know what your lighter experiences were, but did you see like a little bit of Lisa here and you go, "Oh my God, I'm not, you're here," and you see this thing
Yes,
happening, like a separation of,
like
oh,
an observer.
yeah, an observer.
Yeah, like an observer. And I can do that
Like,
without medicine. I can see that I can observe it.
yes,
Yeah,
you just back up a little bit.
exactly.
But 30 years ago, when you were reading the book, it would say back up. It's not so easy sometimes.
Mm-mm. No, but I do know that one time, I'll give you one small example. One time before any medicine or any of this, someone did what I consider a great amount of harm. And I was married, and this woman came along, and the story doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but I thought she really harmed myself and my family. And I went to a man who really was steeped in the course, and he said, it's either an extension of love or a cry for love. And I could see it as plain as day. This woman was crying for love desperately. And
Yeah.
have I ever done that? Absolutely. And that is where I did get the experience. And it was all gone. And where it says
That's great.
nothing ever happened, I got it.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
like, oh, this isn't happening. I mean,
It's
it
just,
happened, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not happening to me. And I extended love. I brought her a turkey for Thanksgiving, and my spouse was so he's like, who is
that's
this? Like,
amazing.
I didn't hold it against her ever. I didn't hold it against him. So I had a complete forgiveness of something that never really happened, because it was it was a cry for love.
I love you brought the turkey, just like the Scrooge. He gave the turkey
Right.
to Cratchit, and
Yeah.
everything was gifts after that and giving.
Right.
Once you see it, it's. But there, it was many years ago, maybe pre-medicine. It didn't stick as we have these
No,
glimpses that keep us
I get,
going.
yeah. Yeah, I get these revelations, but it didn't stick. Like it's sticking now. It's more of a, you and Paul call it a baseline. I have to say my baseline is peace
Yes,
most of the time.
yes,
And I still get rocked, but I get to look at it and go,
yeah.
oh,
Sometimes I like to say that it's like a radio dial, and you
mm,
find this beautiful, peaceful station that's playing. And then if I told you and you were suffering, I'd say, "Lisa, don't you hear it?" And you'd say no. But it's like if you were in a house with 40 vacuum cleaners and 30 blenders and 18 monkeys screaming, and you can't hear this beautiful piece. I would say, "Don't you hear it?" And we'd pull the vacuums out and we'd put the monkeys over here and give them a little Valium, and after a while, as the noise dies down, you can hear that beautiful frequency, and it's always on. It's fully on. It's who you really are, but it gets covered up by that monkey mind and that
hmm
tenacious ego. So the medicine
absolutely.
puts that to sleep. puts the monkey to sleep, and you go, "Oh my God, oh my me,
Oh my me. And
oh
also
my
just
me."
remembering there's no good or bad.
Yeah,
It's a neutral event that I'm putting meaning onto it,
yes.
and that's all. And then let go, and then not make myself wrong or bad, or anyone else wrong or bad, and just be responsible. Like I said, take responsibility.
That's
Um,
what's so beautiful about judging good or bad. Like when Jesus said, "Judge not, or you are judged. Ye are judged," because the judging is you. So if you judge outward, you're judging. You threw yourself out of the kingdom. You're back in the jail.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
so
it.
genius. You can't get away with anything. You have to
I
give, like
know.
you said, surrender everything. And that was
I
great
surrender
advice.
everything.
So you're
Yeah.
saying for people who might be on the fence about the medicine, be ready to surrender, be ready
Be
to let
ready to
go.
surrender and try. And, my recommendation, of course, is to trust whoever you're sitting with. Make sure you do your research.
Yeah.
If you're sitting alone, there's mild things like MDMA and mushrooms that are just totally
Yes.
safe. But 5-MeO, absolutely find the
Don't be
right.
alone.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this has been a beautiful conversation. I'm actually out of things. I mean, how much more could we say about love and
You were perfect.
light? And yeah, I'm just so grateful. And grateful is a small word in how I feel.
You've come a long way, and yet you
Still
were
a long
always
way to
there.
go.
Yeah. And you're
Yeah,
always there. So
exactly.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing with everyone
Thank you.
your
Thank
story,
you.
because I think it will really help people and give them that little push to maybe you know take take a chance, surrender, and try what they're comfortable with.
Okay.
Thank you
Well,
so
great.
much.
Absolutely. And there's also, before we close, one last thing.
Mm.
There's a couple in Sedona that I love, and they're doing Choose Again, and they're building a center there, and it is going to be great for people that don't want to go all the way to Costa Rica. And I just
Yes,
spent a
that's.
week with them, and they're the most giving folks. And I think you might know them if it's okay to mention their name. It's Wendy and Travis Townsend.
Oh, I heard
Um,
the name. Yeah,
yeah, so they're really good friends, and they are just beautiful people, really caring and giving and loving, and they're doing that work there. So
I love the name. Choose Again.
I
It's
love it
great.
too. It's from Course in Miracles, and I thought, if Dietrich Walzer can do this, coming from 0 to 3, living in a prison camp, a real prison camp,
Yes.
and then coming out into this, I won't spoil it, but into this life of just extreme hardship. At 50 or so, he made a decision, and he just couldn't do it anymore. And he worked with Gabor Mate, or Gabor worked with him. I don't remember
Yeah.
which, but that's been a lifesaver for me. It's just been phenomenal. Really, really good stuff. So
Thank you. So that's
thank
Choose
you.
Again. We'll definitely put in the toolbox of
Please choose
great
again.
tools.
That's
Yeah.
the way out of prison,
Yes. And mind training and
and mind
medicine.
training.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lisa. And we'll
Thank
do
you.
another part. We'll do a part 2
Oh, that'd be
sometime.
wonderful. And thank you for being there for me in my times of dark night of the soul.
Always. It's just amazing to look at you now. You're my hero. You're living proof that it
Oh,
works. It's true. You tried it without it. You tried it with it, and you know that it really helped you. And
mm-hmm.
then you go on, and it's not perfect right after. You wind up sometimes back in that prison, but there's a way out. You've been out.
Absolutely.
It's not real.
Absolutely. I can anchor into that no boundary, the no boundary of love place.
Yes.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it always comes.
Right.
All right.
Beautiful.
Love you,
Thank
my
you.
friend. Say hi to our friend. Give him a
I
hug for me.
I
Okay.
will.
All
I'll see
right.
you.
Bye.